Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1018, and today's date is July 10th, 2016, and the title of the episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, as the economy continually deteriorates, the U.S. government, the Fed, the corporate media, they're out there trying to convince everyone that the reason for this is because it's the people that they just don't want to spend their money. They don't want to buy the goods that are being sold in the stores. And this is not the case. It's not that people don't want to. It's that people cannot do this at this point. And we've been talking about this for quite a while because we're seeing a lot of the economic indicators showing us that everything is contracting. Retail is contraction. There are more and more layoffs occurring. And there was a new study that finds that 26 million Americans remain too poor to shop. The study was performed by the America's Research Group. It found that 26 million Americans work on an average of 2 to 3 jobs at a time. When added together, they net just shy of $30,000 in annual income. Now, they're doing all of this while supporting anywhere from 2 to 4 children. So this fits once again into what we've been saying. The American people are tapped out. They're losing the higher paying jobs. They can't find these higher paying jobs. They're getting 2 to 3 jobs. And of course, the U.S. government, the central bankers are counting each one of these jobs, these part-time jobs, as a full-time job. And this is why we see the unemployment rate continually dropping. Yes, it moved up a little bit, but we continually see it drop. And they're trying to tell us that the economy is doing well. And what this report is telling us is that the poorest Americans, they have stopped shopping, except for necessities. Now, it's scary when you start to see things that you've never seen before, because people right now are so pessimistic about their future. Most Americans, savings continue to decline. Millions of U.S. households not only don't have money left over to save money, but they're forced to resort to credit to fund day-to-day expenses. And of course, this becomes a problem when those credit cards reach their limit. And this is how people are surviving today. Nearly half of all Americans have not seen an increase in salary over the last 5 to 7 years, and another 28% have seen their take-home pay reduced by higher medical insurance deductions or switching to these new part-time jobs where they can't find the full-time jobs. So all of this that the corporate media, that the government is trying to tell us, again, is fake, phony, and false. And what we've been saying is that people have been laying off from these high-paying jobs. They can't make ends meet. They're getting 1, 2, 3 jobs, and they still can't make ends meet. This is why people aren't going out and shopping. This is why retail is contracting. This is why people are being laid off. This is why factories are not producing. Manufacturing is declining. This is why we are seeing the economy, the GDP, contract. This is why we see spending declining. Of course, if you add in Obamacare, because people are paying for these high-priced insurance plans, they're showing that spending is increasing. But if you remove that, people aren't spending anywhere. Now, out in North Korea, we're getting word, and this is coming from South Korea, and it always seems to come from South Korea, where they're saying that North Korea just tested a ballistic missile. Now, they're saying they tested one from a submarine. It didn't go well. It didn't work. And the whole thing was completely unsuccessful. Now, of course, the United States jumps on this and says, we condemn North Korea from firing a submarine ballistic missile. That didn't work. Now, of course, do they have any proof of this? Absolutely not. There is no proof. They're showing us no proof. They're just telling us about it. And then, of course, they're trying to implement the THAAD missile system. They want increased military budgets, and they will use this to do so. Poroshenko is out there. He is calling for a global community to promptly create a mechanism for deoccupation of Crimea. They're already making their moves to take back Crimea. We see more and more military assets and troops being moved up to the contact line in Donetsk and Lugansk, and we can expect something big to happen very soon here. NATO right now is going to be giving $1 billion to boost U.S. security efforts in Afghanistan. As we know, the troops are not coming home in Afghanistan. NATO says they are prepared to stay in Afghanistan, and the money will be used to help the U.S. fund Afghan security forces over the next 3 years. Now, did this work before? No. Every time they're telling us they're doing this to help the people in Afghanistan, they're going to let the country fight those terrorists in their country. It never works. Look at Iraq. Look at Libya. Look at Yemen. Look at all the different countries. These aren't terrorists. These are people of the country who don't want the puppet governments in there. They want the United States out of there. And all of this is just to keep the war going in each one of these countries. NATO right now, they're going to be taking command of the U.S.-built missile shield in Europe on Friday. This means that the U.S. ships based in Spain, the radar in Turkey, and the interceptor site in Romania are now able to work together under NATO command and control. We see NATO, they'll be flying their AWACS planes over Turkish airspace, and they'll be flying other jets over Turkish airspace on the border of Syria and Turkey to monitor the situation very closely. NATO, they're going to be creating a new operation called Sea Guardian in the Mediterranean Sea. They're going to be joining the EU with their Operation Sophia. And we can see more and more ships are moving into this area. The question is why? Of course, they're using it under the illusion that they're helping refugees, helping the migrant problem, helping all of this. But what we can see is warships are being sent into this area, easily maneuvered into the sections, to the areas that they'll be needed once the war breaks out. We see the Syrian army, they extended a ceasefire for 3 more days. They had the 72-hour nationwide ceasefire. Now there's a ceasefire in different portions of the countries for an additional 72 hours. Now, since we've had this false flag in Dallas, we see there's protests going on all over the place in Arizona, Louisiana. Actually, in Louisiana, the FBI came out with a warning saying there could be some incident occurring in this area, and we'll have to watch all these different areas. There was a protest in New York, there was one in Georgia, all protesting about what happened in Dallas. Now, when we look at what happened in Dallas, we see Jay Johnson is out there and the corporate media saying that this person acted alone. Now, we know there were reports, and we've seen the videos of sniper shots coming from the garage area, and we realize that this was an operation. And we need to look at something that happened during this time period. There was a drone that was sent in that killed the shooter. Now, this is the first time drones have been used on U.S. soil to kill Americans without a trial or charges. Think about the precedent that's being set right now. And what they did is they removed all due process. They sent this drone in, and they blew up a person. Now, of course, this wasn't a flying drone. This was a mechanical drone that moved on tracks, but it still was a drone. And this is something that we need to look at because we can see this is what they'll be using in the future. Forget about a trial. Forget about looking at the evidence. Of course, most of the time they need to hide all the evidence because of the false flag. So they always need to kill the patsy. But something very interesting about this patsy, Mika Xavier Johnson, we know he was a vet. Most likely he might have been on some type of medication. But he wasn't using an assault rifle. He was using a rifle that was mass-produced in the 40s and 50s, called the SKS. And we can see these have fixed 10-round magazines. They're loaded with 10-round stripper clips, and use the same intermediate cartridge as the AK-47. It's so tame that it can be sold in states like California without any modifications. Even with some of the aftermarket modifications that are available, the SKS is not an ideal weapon for going toe-to-toe with dozens of armed police officers. So that's very interesting. Now, of course, out of all this, Obama is signaling more gun control. And we can see right now all of this is being used for this time period of where we're approaching the elections, creating chaos, martial law, suspending the Constitution. And we have a lot going on right now. And we need to be aware, keep our eyes open, because there's going to be more false flags. There's going to be more events. Things are really going to heat up during this summer. We're going to have to watch the Middle East because we can see this economy is quickly deteriorating. It's getting harder and harder for the U.S. government to explain away why people just can't go out and purchase goods anymore, why people are losing jobs, why the economy is not doing what they say it is doing. Their statistical illusionary numbers are moving in one direction, and reality is moving in another direction. And reality is taking over right now. More and more people are starting to realize there's something wrong. As I speak to more family and friends, those people that believe the government, who believed the corporate media, and I ask them about unemployment. Do you really think unemployment is around 4.7, 4.9%? Most of the people say that I speak to, no, I don't think these are real numbers. I think it's a lot worse than it really is. And then I say to them, so you think the government is lying about this? And they say, yeah, I don't think they're telling us the truth here. Which is very interesting because if you go back in time, just a couple of years, people would have never said that before. But we can see more and more people are becoming aware of what is going on, that the government does lie, that the government is tricking us into thinking that everything is okay. And people are starting to wake up very slowly. Now, is the whole country awake? No, not yet. But we're on the right track here. And we need to wake up more and more people. They need to realize what our government is doing, what the central bankers are up to. Because there will be a point where we'll have to come together as a people, and we will have to decide, do we want the central bankers, the U.S. government, to continue on, or do we want to take back our country? Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.